So this is the seasonings that I use for a Cuban sandwich. This is pork tenderloin that I just got from my butcher that is infused with the natural juices so it stays a little more tender. But there are other ways to make your pork tender, but first let's start with the seasoning and what I have here today. So onion powder, cumin, and all I'm doing is just, as you can see, is just giving it a sprinkle. It's not so much about the measuring as it is about just coating it. So that was paprika. I'm gonna use a little Mexican oregano, chili powder, and garlic powder. And of course, you will always want to season with salt and pepper. As you can see, there's a lot of seasoning on this piece of pork. I'm going to kind of rub it around and then dredge the other side through the leftovers. That way you don't waste anything. And it turns out to be both sides are coated with seasoning. We're going to let that rest for just a minute. We'll be back. So I don't have a gas stove inside, so I bought this outdoor propane gas type setup because cast iron, which I like to cook on most, does not work well on a electric stove. So what I've done is I've got my cast iron seasoned pan here that I've had for a lot of years, and I've got a little bit of oil in the bottom to keep from sticking. I've just got this on a medium to medium high heat, letting that get to temperature. And we have our pork that we seasoned inside not too long ago. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna toss that in there, and we are gonna let that cook for probably about 10 minutes on each side. That's the best guess for now, but we'll keep an eye on it and I'll report back. Okay, so we've been about 5 minutes, and I wanted to point out to you here is you can start to see the meat starting to brown. So it's very pink up here and brown down here. So that can kind of give you an idea about how far into the cook process you are. I'm gonna go ahead and flip it. It's got a nice sear on this side, which is good. And I'm gonna let that cook for probably about 7 to 8 minutes because we're not quite through to the halfway point in the center. You can see that this meat is still super soft and tender. So we're gonna let that go for about 7 or 8 minutes, and then it should be done. To assemble the Cuban sandwich, I have some Italian bread. Ciabatta is traditional and you can use it. I prefer my sandwich with a little bit of a lighter bread, and I can use this Italian bread because of the way I'm going to finish it. We have some Swiss cheese, some ham. I got some Grey Poupon for your mustard. Here is our pork that we made outside resting. Slice that with my nice Global brand knives, which I highly recommend. Okay, so we'll get to it here. You can use a lot or a little mustard depending on your flavor profile, but I do both sides of the bread. One usually a little heavier than the other, so it's not too overpowering. I am also making this with pickles and without because one of my people to eat today does not like pickles. But that is not how you make a real Cuban sandwich. So Here we go. So once we have our mustard, we're going to take our ham and put it in this pan over here. And we are going to put that just on a medium heat to heat up this ham and brown it just a little bit. We're going to take our cheese, and I like to cut it instead of just laying the whole piece on, because then I can kind of spread it across the sandwich and have it go all the way to the edges. This is going to be our half sandwich over here. Since we have a little bit left, we'll go a little extra cheese on this side. That would be my cat. She's very vocal. I use the Clausen dill for my Cuban sandwiches. I think that these have a much better flavor than just like a hamburger pickle. So I'm going to take and make some slices, fairly thin. And that'll be enough for a half a sandwich. And I'm also going to put these in our skillet just to warm them a little bit, because you want your sandwich to be warm when you're finished, not cold. All right, we have our pork that's been resting, and I'm going to slice it. And look, we cooked it perfectly. Super tender, cooked all the way through. They're nice, beautiful Cuban flavors on the outside. So we'll take and start to assemble. Put our pork lined up on the sandwich, getting all the spaces. If you like your pork thicker, and of course this is all to taste, how much meat do you like on your sandwich? I'll do one more right there. Okay. Now we have our ham is almost heated through. Our pickles are warm. So for the sandwich that has pickles, I'm gonna put those in. I'm gonna flip this ham one time here, just to make sure both sides are heated all the way through. Plus, ham cooked just a little bit brings out some of the flavor and the saltiness. I think it just is a little bit better than just putting it on there straight from the fridge or the deli. All right, I'm gonna lay our ham, our second sandwich. I'm gonna just clean this up a little bit so it fits. And then we are going to put our second bread on the sandwich. It's very important when you're making your Cuban sandwiches that you drizzle your bread pretty good with olive oil. Since we're going to be finishing this in that cast iron skillet, we don't want anything to stick, and this will give you a really nice crust at the end. So I'm going to clean my cast iron skillet with water, no soap, and then I'm going to go back outside to our fire ran grill, and we'll finish these sandwiches. All right, outside again with our nice sandwich. Just throw that right on our cast iron skillet. I have that on about a medium heat. High, medium to low. They're only going to need to cook for a few minutes on each side. Okay, so we have one side brown, we'll brown the other, and then it's ready to eat. I hope that you enjoy it as much as I do.